Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the South Bank podcast. I am joined by Cameron Gorman and Jacob Jones. How are we doing today, boys? How are we all feeling?
A lot better than last week. So, Matt, I'm excited for this one. It feels good to actually be excited to talk about Wolves once. So,
Cameron, how about yourself, mate?
Honestly, buzzing. When it went 2-0 down, I thought the boys didn't deserve that result. To come back and win a point, I think it speaks a lot about the character in that dressing room. We're not down yet. They haven't given up.
That's good. That's good. Obviously, we're going to talk. I just want to hear you guys' overview on the whole match. So, obviously, how we played in the first half, and obviously with Boabak bringing the goal just before half time. Cam, what are your thoughts on obviously how we played in the first half?
Well, the first half, I thought Brighton were the better team, in honesty. I think the way we set up with five at the back, it was obviously to soak the pressure, keep it tight, frustrate them a bit going into half time. I think the lads, they defended really well. I think the game plan was brilliant, to be honest. Very unlucky. We concede one mistake, probably the only real mistake we made in that first half. And then that lets Brighton go in at the break with a goal to the good. So lapsing concentration maybe, but I thought we still soaked up the pressure well. Second half, we changed the system, but we'll get to that after. I think first half, just a lapse in concentration. What are your thoughts, Jacob?
I think it's really interesting. To be honest, I thought the first half we lacked any real creativity. I will be honest, which probably does come hand in hand with back five. That's where the only argument comes from. So you take a bit of creativity out. But in terms of soaking up pressure, I thought, we did really well. They didn't really hurt us until the goal, which was obviously a mistake from Sarr. And then obviously Welbeck gets his mandatory goal against Wolves, so he does every game we play on. But I thought it was quite interesting how Gary O'Neill said after the game he never wanted to play a back five against Brighton, really. It was more of a reaction to last week. And we obviously saw it change at half time to a back four, which did work better. So as much as we do slag off the back four, Gary O'Neill, obviously, we saw him on Sky last year. He takes things game by game. Obviously, for this game, he did have the right idea, but I'll get onto it a bit more later. But it just shows that he did have the right idea there. And once he did implement it, it clearly worked. The results there to show.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously in the first half, when when it kicked off, I reckon we played quite well. Obviously, we didn't concede a lot as quickly as I thought we would have, because I thought obviously due to Brighton and how recent results have been against Brighton, you know how it usually is. But now we held it off well. We managed to hold it on the back, but yeah, obviously just an unfortunate mistake from Sarr, but we're all human. We all make mistakes. It's just glad it didn't cost us the whole blimming game. But yeah, so obviously that was the first half. How do you guys think we played in the second half? Obviously, when it kicked off again, and then we switched to the back four. How do you reckon we played them? Cam, we'll start with you.
Well, I think going into the second half, I thought the back four worked excellent. Carlos Forbes coming in, brilliant game from him. He's a dynamic player, and I think he had so much to us going forward with his pace and his dribbling. He really does frighten the defenders when they see him coming towards them. Now, I think Sarabia, not necessarily the most involved in the game, perhaps, but he does add control. He does add his set piece delivery, I think, especially. We have missed something like that, whereas our normal starting lineup without Sarabia in the team, we haven't been as threatening on set plays. And his deliveries always pinpoint, going in that edge of that 6-yard box. Dawson almost getting on a few, getting on one for Aït-Nouri's goal. Almost had a Dawson bicycle kick to deal with.
Yeah.
It is what he was attempting to do, but brilliant take by Aït-Nouri to come in and lash that home. And then let's talk about the ginger from City, Tommy Doyle. What did we all think of him? 4-on-1, and instead we get a goal from it. I think it was outstanding from him. He did really well to read the pass from Viva, although honestly, the Brighton man should have done better with it. I don't think in that position, Brighton can afford to give away the ball there. There's so many options. Ideally, they should have made it 3-1, but we're not Brighton fans. This isn't a Brighton podcast, so I'm absolutely ecstatic with that result.
Of course. Jacob, how about you? How do you reckon we played in the second half compared to the first?
I mean, we've got to start with what we said on Tommy Doyle. What a lad! I mean, I'm so made up for him because we all know how good of a footballer he is and how unlucky he is not to be playing regular football for his football club because that guy is so good. Like, he's back on his own anyway. He does his defensive duties and then picks out an absolute worldie of a pass. I mean, to even spot it under 4-on-1 is impressive. To pull it off and execute it like that, he's cool as ice. We mentioned Carlos Forbes last week. I said how I really do like him. That directness really does add something all the time. I thought Sarabia played well when he came on yesterday. I think, like I say, set piece to him is really good. But I always thought he was always in that pocket a few times, especially when Guedes came on, who I also thought had a good shift when he came on, Guedes. Twice, Guedes makes a run in behind and Sarabia finds him. So I think what we come to forget about Pablo Sarabia is while he doesn't have that maybe physical side or that gonna go run you up the pitch and deliver the ball, his technical prowess is one of the best in the team by far. And that's about it really. I think much better second half. I was in Liverpool at the time, so I did turn off at 2-0 for about all of 20 seconds. So I got a goal notification on my phone at 8-0 he'd scored, and the game went back on. Happy it did. So yeah.
Yeah, nah, to be fair, I was the same as you, honestly. As soon as I saw 2-0, as soon as I saw 2-0, I was like, oh no, here we go again. We're not going to get a point. Gary O'Neill's gone and everything, but then obviously to bring it back from Nori, from obviously put it in bottom right, and then for Cunha to slap it in left. It's really, really well. And like you said, Tommy Doyle as well. He needs to be starting more. I think after the game, I reckon this is like, I hope it puts an image into Gary O'Neill's eyes on who should actually be starting more, who's been playing well, and who's actually good to fit the starting 11.
So if I were to add something in, Sammy, I think previous years we've struggled with our depth in midfield. I think Tommy Doyle, Andre, João Gomez, Lamina, we do have some excellent midfielders, and I can see why Gary O'Neill has had such a selection headache. But I do agree with you completely. I think Tommy Doyle has really stamped his mark in every game he's played. And I think he showed why he deserves to be in the team. We don't have a passer of the ball quite like him. We used to in Neves, Matinho, and that is honestly the closest in terms of the sheer passing ability of Tommy Doyle. It's like the edge of a knife through butter. It's incredible, and I don't think we have anyone else who can quite add that in. And you, Jacob, mentioned Sarabia filling in the pockets. I completely agree. His filling in the space on that right-hand side allowed him to drop deep, play some cross-field balls through to Forbes or Guedes when he came on, like you mentioned. I do think passing of the ball is what really made the difference yesterday. I don't know if either of you agreed with that.
I certainly do, yeah. I think obviously all our chances came from balls being released through the channels. I mean, it was every single chance we got. The Guedes one way chases the ball down and nearly got through out of that, etc. Stuff like that. Another thing about Guedes, like I say there, I just mentioned chase down the ball. He gets a lot of stick for his body language, whatever. He came on, he chased every ball yesterday, which was really refreshing to see from him. That's usually the part of his game that somewhat lacks. But when he came on against Brighton on Saturday, sorry, not yesterday, he was chasing every ball, and it was very refreshing to see. There's a proper fight about Wolves. I think that's why the result feels so good to us. It was like that proper bit of fight that we've been missing a bit.
Yeah, I want to mention something. I don't think you guys might have noticed this, but obviously you talk about Guedes. But there was a part where Guedes was, I'm not going to say disappointed, but he didn't feel, he didn't seem happy from other people's perspective. And that was when Cunha scored, obviously, that final goal, when obviously after Tommy Doyle. Guedes, obviously, he cuts in, he makes the run. Obviously, Cunha doesn't pass it off to him. And as soon as Cunha scores, you see all the other players, they're running off and obviously celebrating with Cunha, and obviously with the fans. But Guedes, I was looking at it yesterday, and obviously you see it from other people's perspectives, where when you saw Cunha score, Guedes' head was down. I don't know, maybe he might have wanted that pass play to him and he should have scored. I don't know, but it's just stuff like that you don't really see. But yeah, obviously, like you guys said, besides from that, obviously he did play well as soon as he came on. And like you said with Sarabi as well, I think obviously putting the boards into Forbes and Guedes, is good. But I want to ask you guys, obviously, compared to last week's game against City, and obviously now against Brighton, do you guys think, obviously, there's been any improvements, which obviously it kind of has been, but in what kind of areas? Jacob, we'll start off with you.
See, it's there has definitely been improvement, but it's not one specific area because the improvement for the City game was for transitioning to the back five, whereas the Brighton game, our Achilles' heels that we were in the back five. But maybe you could argue, it kept them at bay at 1-0, but we didn't have that creative spark that we did when we went to back four. So there has been improvements, certainly. Is it just maybe that City game maybe had the opposite effect of what we thought and gave them players that bit of belief that, hold on, we've just took the best team in the world, arguably, at the minute, until the 95th minute they scored or something like that. Did that maybe spur them on a bit? Or is it simply, we know the relationship Gary O'Neill has with these players, are they just playing to keep them the job? Because I think that Lamina, obviously coming out after the Brentford game, saying how behind them they all are, and he clearly has a good rapport. So I think, are they just stepping up for the manager, which I love to see? We've just seen today with Eric Ten Hag going from Man United. A few people have been saying like, oh, the players want the manager out. It seems like the opposite effect yesterday at Wolves, and especially the week before. I wonder if Cab has the same thoughts.
Yeah, no, you said exactly the point I was going to bring up, Jacob. I really thought they were playing to earn Gary O'Neill his job. A lot of people are saying, even now, like if we lose to Crystal Palace in our next game at home, he should go. These players, they could have downed their tools. They could have let that result happen, and it easily could have finished 2-0 Brighton, maybe 3. And then they're without a manager, and people like Guedes, who before were deemed with the attitude, with the body language. I didn't notice what you spotted, Sammy, but I think that speaks more to the character of him wanting to contribute with goals and assists as well. But I think these players, they're really behind the manager. They must see something in him. Even when the results aren't showing, we obviously don't get to see what happens behind the scenes. Now, they are playing out of their skin for him in terms of fighting from the 89th minute to get a result. I think that really shows how much care and energy he puts into his job. And with someone like that in charge, you can't really argue with it. If the players are willing to fight for him, fight for the club, that's exactly what we need in the position we're in, I think. And it might be reactionary to say, but I really think he should keep his job right now.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, it was unfortunate with the last game against City. Obviously, with goals shouldn't really being goals if we wasn't given one against West Ham. But I'm not going to get into that now. I'm not getting into that now. But yeah, no, we have seen improvements. Obviously, Gary O'Neill, we last week we were kind of debating whether obviously if he should be in or he should be out. But now I think after this Brighton even draw, it's kind of like giving us a sigh of relief as Wolves fans as well, because it's obviously put us into this kind of sentiment that he is trying. He wants to try and make Wolves be Wolves instead of us looking as if we're getting for relegation. So it's nice to see that there has been a slight bit of improvement. But yeah, so now we're going to move over to someone who's, I'd arguably say, one of the best players at Wolves currently, Matheus Cunha. Obviously, we're going to talk about his impact on the. So, yeah, Tom, we'll start off with you. You seem a bit like you're excited to talk about this one. So.
Yeah, I absolutely am crazy about this man. If I was a teenager having my first love, it would be Matheus Cunha right now. This man, I saw a stat yesterday. Only Haaland has more away Premier League goals since the start of last season than Cunha, and that's only by one, if I recall. Now, this man always puts in a shift away, always playing his heart out for the travelling fans. We said last week how it appears sometimes his body language can drop. He can see him irritated or annoyed at his teammates. Now, I still kind of stand by it in a sense, but like you said with Guedes seeming annoyed Cunha didn't pass it, when I was watching, I was kind of in the same boat. I was sitting there thinking, Kanye, why have you not passed it? Why have you not passed it? But he waited, he shot, and it went in. We can't complain about that equaliser. And then we get to see him doing his whole like surfing thing again. I love it. I'm just a massive fan. But I think him yesterday in the transition was incredible. And I'd like to touch on our Ryan Aït-Nouri briefly as well. Also, him incredible. The way these two compare on the left-hand side. I mean, not compare, combined on the left-hand side. I think it's amazing. They really complement each other well with their little like flicks and body feints. And I really think they just had so much in the transition, and it made such a difference yesterday.
Yeah. Jacob, what about you? What are your thoughts on that, mate?
To be honest, I've been thinking about, do you want to see that tweet on Saturday where that bloke puts out, Cunha, you've been abysmal. And then about 2 seconds later, he scored. It's Cunha, lovely, mate. It's about how I felt, to be fair. 'Cause he didn't have his best game, but the guy, we spoke about it with his body language before. The guy just is Wolves. The guy bleeds gold and black. And we always say it was out of a place of love. I mean, Cameron's doing the celebration now. He's a legend for that in general. But honestly, the guy is insanely good at football. That's why we love him, but also his passion. I do think, like, if we touch back on Guedes just for a second, the body language thing, I think that's just how he is. I can't lie. I think people, like, the guy scored 2 against Burnley and still looked like he had a terrible day. The guy just, when you see him go to warm up, he's walking, he's moping about. It's just, even on his announcement video, when he got announced at Wolves, it's like, oh, put on a smile, Goncalo. It's like, I just don't think the guy's a very like high energy character. On the flip side to that, Matheus Cunha, very, very high energy character. Like you say, we absolutely love the guy, and there's reason for that. Not only his goals, but the passion he shows all the time. Was the deflection maybe paper over the cracks? We should have passed it, yeah. But do we care? No. So,
yeah, we'll happily take a point. We'll happily take a point from Brighton. I mean, you can't.
No, definitely, especially with the form they're in.
I do think, though, obviously it's a brilliant point, but we took back on Gary O'Neill. I said on the podcast last weekend we need 4 points in the next 2 games. Like, we're on cloud nine at the minute, brilliant comeback, but we are still on 2 points in the table without a win. We do still need to beat Crystal Palace on the weekend, if I'm being honest.
At least we're at 20th. At least we're at bottom of the table. I'll take it. Right. Yeah,
gosh.
I reckon Cunha, probably wasn't his best game yesterday, but we'll take a point. We'll take a draw. If it goes in the back of the net, a goal's a goal. I'll say play ball. But
can never complain.
Yeah, no, I love his energy, and I love what he brings to Wolves as well. Like Jacob said, he literally bleeds gold and black. Like, that man is Wolves' man. Wolves' man. On the other side, I am going to talk about someone else who played quite well, but gave quite an unfortunate mistake yesterday. Jose Sarr. Obviously, he's started a bit more now against obviously instead of Sam Johnston, and obviously his incredible save from Belabin today outside the box. So it was going to go on the left side. But then to give it away, it costed us a goal. But it was. I want to hit everyone's thoughts on Sarr. How do you reckon his game yesterday? Jacob, we'll start off with you.
He can't do right from doing wrong, can he? Bless him. He comes in, has a brilliant game, and he's back to his old antics and not being able to kick a football the week after. So it is a shame because, like you say, the save he made, I don't get a bad game yesterday at all. He gives the ball away once in the whole game, and it leads to a goal. But we know his distribution is poor. We know all of that. Simply because if there's a massive headache going on, do you keep Johnson and do you keep Sarr in now? Because obviously he had that brilliant game against City, but I don't mean Sam Johnston. It's an injury. He didn't do anything wrong himself to get dropped. In fact, the Brentford game, I know he conceded 5, but bloody hell, it'd been 11 without him in goal as well. People forget that. So there is a real headache there, really. How do you solve that? Maybe stick Dan Bentley in goal and just leave both of them on the bench. See how that goes.
I'm not sure I quite agree with that one, Jacob. I think personally, Jose Sarr should be given another stop. You mentioned that stop against Baleba, who, by the way, I thought was excellent yesterday. He is a monster in that midfield. Jose Sarr, brilliant stop to keep out his shot. I think there was a couple of good saves, and especially what I think Sarr does well compared to John Stone is he always comes out to claim the crosses, claim these corners. And I think in a lot of those situations, yesterday, if we had John Stone in goal, Sarr might have been the better option. Now, I know he made a mistake, but other than that lapse in concentration, I do think he had a good game. And I do think he deserves to keep his spot against Palace, as while John Stone may appear stat-wise to be a leaky cauldron, he is an excellent shot stopper himself. And like you said, when we watched the Brentford game, he did keep out a lot of those goals, despite the ridiculous scoreline we let it become. But I think Jose, he really does care. And I think in certain situations, he is the man. But I really do think it depends on the opponent, which is crazy to say when it comes to a goalkeeper, as ideally you want to be giving one or the other a string of games to start and build some form, make those posts a fortress, really. But I do think they both have their pros and cons. I'm not sure what your thoughts were, Sammy.
No, I'll be honest. Like I said, like you said, with the Brentford game, obviously without Johnson, like Jacob said, we would have been conceding like 11 goals. So he did make some good saves. It was just our shape, if anything, within the game, how it didn't play well. But Jose Sarr yesterday, obviously, it's one of them ones. Like you said, okay, he made a mistake, but like you said, he is a good goalkeeper. Like for Wolves, he is. He's been with us now for so long, and obviously he's looking like he wants to. He's fighting for his place. He's fighting to be that number one goalkeeper at Wolves. So I love obviously seeing this Jose Sarr coming out. I like seeing this passionate and hard working Jose Sarr coming in. Obviously on the flip side, we've got Johnston as well, but if I had to pick currently right now, I don't know. I'm torn between the two because like Cameron, you said, they've both got pros and cons. But I reckon the game on Saturday against Brighton, he played really well, really really well. Some incredible saves. Obviously against Brighton attackers and midfielders as well, like Baleba. That save against Baleba was incredible. I don't know. Like even commentators were saying that it's probably the save of the game. But he's. I like him how he played on Saturday against Brighton. Just that unfortunate mistake, but like we all said, we all make mistakes, so you can't really fault it. So obviously we spoke about Gary O'Neill before. Obviously we had a little couple subjects and everything onto it. But what do you guys reckon now? Obviously we're still only one win within the last 19 games. Like we still haven't won, and on stats that looks sackable. So is there anything that you guys want to add? Obviously, with Ten Hag now going, is this time for Gary O'Neill's time to be on now as well, or we'll start off with you? What do you reckon?
Well, there's a few things I really want to say here. I said to my flatmate this morning, who is a Manchester United fan, that it easily could have been Gary O'Neill getting sacked this morning too, had we lost yesterday. And I think ultimately, if the boys didn't pull off that comeback, that probably would have been the case, looking at the run of fixtures we are yet to have with teams in and around us. Our next 3, 4, 5 games, all very winnable, maybe even more beyond that. But I think, as Jacob touched upon, Gary O'Neill didn't necessarily want to go in the back 5 to start the game off. That was more reactionary to City. His change to the back 4 when the players came out half time, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, wow, that's the wrong decision. We're going to concede a boatload. But that ultimately wasn't the case. And Gary O'Neill showed that he does have that tactical knowledge. And we played a lot better when we changed into the back 4. We were the better team the second half, and we were unlucky to even concede the second, as it was Brighton's only real chance. Now, does this show that Gary O'Neill is the right man for the job? I think it still does. I think ultimately that could change very quickly given the fixtures we have with Palace, Everton, Southampton being next. But I think he has earned his right to stay as manager, at least after the Palace and Southampton games, I feel like, because while I'm seeing some fans saying good result against Brighton, but he still needs to go if we lose to Palace, I completely see why. If you include his form off the back of last season, going into this season, like you said, it's not good reading, but I do back him to turn it around. These players obviously still fighting for a reason. They still really believe in this man. Now, if it was all down to the coach, if it was down to his tactics that have made us get in this winning streak, we have had our wrong side of the coin, so to speak. But if these players believe in this manager, that is because they obviously still believe in his style of football also. So I do think Gary O'Neill is the right man for the job right now. But with our fixtures, that could all change.
It all changed. Jacob Jones, how do you feel about Gary O'Neill?
I mean, yeah, I'm still of the camp that he needs to win against Palace. I feel like if he does not win against Palace, his time's up. He is lucky in a way to still be in a job because there's not many seasons where you'll be on 2 points after what are we on 8 games, 7 games, is it?
9.
Played
9.
and not be bottom of the league. That just proves to is it what I know Palace won yesterday, so what there's 3 teams that'll win now in the league.
Southampton, Ipswich, no, Southampton, us, and
Ipswich.
I believe, yeah.
So, there is a sense of like fortune there. I know, like, saying fortune is a bit crazy because context. Look at the other games we've had, etc. But I feel like now, as Cameron said, our next 3 or 4 games very winnable. This is where you've got to prove yourself now. If you're Gary O'Neill, takes it game by game. He didn't want to play a back 5 yesterday, but he did as a reaction to the City game, which I do respect that he knew that he had to change it. But at the time, should he have stuck with his gut from the start? Who knows? But we got a result. I'm not going to dwell on that. But if you are a manager who takes it game by game, you've got to be able to put a game plan that's going to win us at least 2 of our next 3 or 4 games. You've got to be able to put together a game plan that will beat Crystal Palace, that will beat a Southampton. I don't think Fulham's an easy game at all. I think they are quite terrified at times lately. I mean, 2 certain men who used to play for Wolverhampton Wanderers suddenly looking rather strong as we're just about to play them, obviously. So we all know what's going to happen there, probably. So I think, this next month is probably the biggest month Gary O'Neill's had as Wolves manager. Definitely.
Yeah. I agree. Obviously, well, as we're just heading into November shortly, like I said earlier, it's not nice, obviously, that we've only won 1 game in the last 19 fixtures within the Premier League. So, like I said, on stats, it is sackable form. It literally is. And obviously, like we saw, Ten Hag is gone. So, yeah, like you said, Jago is quite lucky in a way to still be in a job. Obviously, our faith and our thoughts, obviously, with Gary O'Neill. I think with us as Wolves fans, it's one of them ones where even if we lose a game, we always think, Gary O'Neill should be out. Gary O'Neill needs to get gone. But then when we win a game, it's always keep Gary O'Neill in. So you can't please the Wolves fans. You generally can't.
Or draw a game.
Of course,
We're a fickle bunch.
Yeah, no, you can't win. But hopefully, this next month he needs to turn this all around. So that's good. And obviously, we've got our next week's fixture, obviously against Crystal Palace, who won their game yesterday, 1-0 against Tottenham. How are you guys thinking? What are we thinking? Score predictions wise, is it a win or loss, or what we think about next week? I'll start off with you, Cam.
I think before yesterday, I would have said we'll win. I really was confident looking at Palace, especially after our comeback against Brighton, which, fun fact for you, that was our first time avoiding defeat after being 2 goals down in a Prem game for the first time since 2022 with Cody's goal against Chelsea equalising. Yeah. But I really was looking forward to the Palace game. I was thinking, right, this is an opportunity to now really build some form, really capitalise on the momentum we could get from a late comeback like that. and get some points on the board, stop catching up with them. But obviously, them picking up the win against Spurs yesterday, they played well, they defended well, and I think it really does throw a spanner in the works. You could see it going either way, because Crystal Palace over recent years, they have been a bit of a bogey team for us. Now, is this going to continue? Are they going to turn up to Molineux and spoil our day? I hope not. Although I agree that Gary O'Neill, as the game-by-game manager he says he is, he needs to really put his money where his mouth is now. Because if we can't come out with any less than a win from that game, I hate to say it, in the position we're in. Otherwise, we are rooted at the bottom of the table. And when you get stuck there, not many teams get unstuck from it.
Yeah. Jacob, what you think about next week's game?
Well, Cameron brought up that Chelsea game, and it just brought back so that was the game Chiquinho came on and just dropped an absolute all-time performance, wasn't it? We didn't even have a manager. I don't think. I think the goalkeeping coach was in charge that day. Oh, what a day, man! But yeah, we never beat Crystal Palace, so not really confident. But we've got to win. But it's one of them where even when we were good, I remember Jordan Ayew coming to the Molineux and turning into prime Ronaldo, scoring 2 against us. It's like, oh. So, am I confident? If we play the way we have played in that second half against Brighton, where we are attacking, we're playing the ball through them channels. Tommy Doyle has got to start. If you're, especially if you're going to stop in a back five, particularly. You need Tommy Doyle on that pitch. He's going to release your Cunhas, your Larsons, your Forbes when he comes on, your Bellegarde, who, may I just add, is very unlucky at the moment. You're at the Bellegarde, because I do think whilst we were as poor as we were, he was one of the better performers. But I think he's unlucky in the fact that he's one of the easier ones to drop, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's not a mainstay within the team, so it was quite easy to say, this isn't quite working. Even though you have players like, I love him, but Mario Lemina, who has not been on it at all this season, really. But that captain's armband is kind of a protective shield at times for him. I do think, although he was hooked off yesterday at half-time. So for me, I'm going to back us for a win. I'm going to say 2-1 Wolves win. But that is optimistic. I know our form against Palace. What about you, Sammy, mate? What do you think?
Yeah, obviously, we never win against Palace. We don't. I still remember last time when we played them last season and it was 3-1, and I was there, and I think I cried that day. I don't think I cried. But like you said, Cam, yesterday, if they didn't win yesterday, I would have happily said Wolves win, because obviously his bad would be a win, but we never win against Palace, and obviously for them to secure a 1-0 win against Tottenham, I can see us losing or drawing. Hopefully it's a draw. I wouldn't mind taking a draw against Palace personally, because we never win against them anyway. So a draw would look quite well in our favour, and then maybe just hope for a win for the next fixtures. But I'm saying I can see us scoring 2, but I can also see them scoring 2. So I'm saying 2-2 draw.
Yeah, that was exactly the same as I was going to say, Sammy. I do see us scoring. I do see us scoring 2, but I also don't see Palace not scoring. I will match your 2-2 prediction. I was thinking ahead of this game, even if we draw, because Crystal Palace are such a hard team for us to play, it seems, in recent years, does Gary O'Neill still stay if we draw 2-2? I don't know. I think in the event we draw with Crystal Palace, I do think we should keep him, because the teams after, it gives him a chance to build some real momentum with this team against some, may I add, a lot more winnable games than Crystal Palace. It's never nice going up against a bogey side, and we were kind of saying that last week ahead of looking into Brighton this week, but we still got a result in unlikely circumstances. So does that work for or in his favour? I'm not sure, but I'm really interested to see how this goes, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm going to say 2-2, and I'm going to say I think we should back Gary O'Neill even if it's a draw.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
I think he does stay with a draw. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Sammy. I didn't mean. I think he does stay with a draw simply because of the rapport he does have with the players. I think it has to be a loss for him to go. If we lose to Southampton the week after, he might as well pack his bags that night because he is gone. I mean, for me, I'm sticking by what I said in the podcast last week. We need 4 points from Brighton and Palace. We've got the 1 point. We need the 3 points Saturday. For me, a draw is not enough. But I also add the context that both you have said that we never do well against Crystal Palace and they will be a tough opposition. So a draw in isolation is not the worst result in the world, but we need to start winning football matches.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. It's I think with Gary O'Neill currently, I think even if he gets a draw against Palace, it may just be enough to save him. Maybe. Obviously, we'd like to hope for a win, but we'd be more than happy to to get a win from Palace. But if we get a draw, then it may just save him a shot. Hopefully not a loss. But that's about it for the second episode of the podcast. Obviously, you've been joined by Sammy, Cameron, and I'll see you all next week.